I also want to thank General Kellogg in particular. Indeed, we did not know this before, but it turned out that the United States has air defense no worse than Patriot. Indeed, Mr. General, they talk about this every time you are here. When you are in Kyiv, Keith Kellogg. The people of Kyiv can definitely get a little sleep. I would like you to travel to all the cities of Ukraine. And we would really like a few more such American systems for our country. This is really not quite a joke. Honestly, when there is a representative of the President of the United States of America, President Trump, in Kyiv, there are no massive strikes. Killers refrain from killing. This does not work with representatives of other states. Perhaps it would work with a representative of China. But it seems that China is not interested in stopping, if not the entire war, then at least the strikes. This does not work with representatives of international organizations, including the largest ones. When the UN Secretary-General Guterres was in Kyiv, Putin was launching strikes. And he was even striking quite demonstratively. The Russians hit not only with drones, the Russians hit with missiles. It's the same when the OSCE is here. It's the same when NATO is here. It's the same when the mission of the International Monetary Fund is here or whatever. So, I think the United States has the power to influence Putin in such a way that he at least adjusts his behavior. And a very interesting question is how it works. I remember when the Chinese representative was traveling to Russia. They really handed us a note, sending all signals from Beijing, urging us not to use long-range weapons while the representative of China was in Russia. I wonder if this works the same way with the US and Russia, Mr. General. Perhaps this is an option on how to implement the ceasefire, which President Trump spoke about back in February. I am ready to give General Kellogg citizenship. Everything that's needed. An apartment, everything. If it will urge Russia to cease fire. Probably there is a possibility in China for the Russians to stop killing. But the world hasn't seen China's willingness to implement this with regard to Russia. China called for a ceasefire in this war, and not to expand this war, but Putin did nothing. This doesn't stop China from warmly welcoming Putin and talking to him about the most important thing, longevity. Perhaps Putin has some respect for India, as his words seem to suggest. But even India's calls for an end to the war, statements that our century is not a time for war, were also ignored by Russia. This applies to everyone else in the world. No matter which country it may be, the Russians do not stop killing in its presence or attention. But how long can America and President Trump's attention remain on this war, and the need to end it? How long will America maintain our defenses against Russian strikes? Will the world turn a blind eye to the fact that Putin wants to continue fighting? And he wants. I have no doubt that Putin was looking for an answer to these and other questions. And the fact that he chose to continue the war clearly says what his answer is. Putin does not believe In Europe, in America, in the West in general. That is why Russia is at war. Putin believes in China, Iran, North Korea, and therefore he is looking for strategic agreements there. Putin is betting that money will erode everyone, by the way, both the weak and the strong. He believes that money will allow him to buy himself forgiveness for everything. In principle, this is his plan. To try to buy forgiveness and continue the war. The main question is, who is the buyer? Dear friends, in fact, every day asks us all such questions. They are different. Sometimes unpleasant, uncomfortable, which, it seems, many in the world are not really going to answer. It is these questions about details, in my opinion, that make up the main question of today. How to end the war. 19 Russian drones against Poland from the territory of two states, Ukraine and Belarus, during Russian military exercises in Belarus. Targeted strike. NATO countries are raising combat aircraft. A few days have passed and it is gradually ceasing to be a topic. And what are the consequences for Russia? Let's be honest, none. The day before the attack on Poland, the Russians killed 25 people in the village of Yarova in the Donetsk region. Ordinary people, the elderly. They came to receive a pension. These are exactly the residents of Donbas that Russia says it is saving them. It kills them, and this is the very land that Russia wants to seize. Supposedly to save. To save from life. Exactly. Russia leaves nothing but graves and ruins in the Donbas. And of course, we strike back. The question is, what do others do? And just a little more than a week before Yarova, the Russian flag was flying at the Venice Film Festival. On August 28, the Russians struck a brutal blow on Kyiv. The children were killed. You remember, a total of more than 20 people were killed. And this is only here in Kyiv. But this did not prevent the Russian flag from getting to one of the world's leading art events. Because art seems to be outside politics, outside of war. Art is for the living at festivals. Not for the dead in Ukrainian cities, in Ukrainian villages after another Russian strike. How can we reward the Russians for the war by accepting them back into the world like nothing happened? Strong responses are needed. Strong responses. Putin's goal is the occupation of all of Ukraine. And no matter what he says to anyone, of course, he has spun his war machine so much that he simply cannot stop it. If you don't force him to change his goals, his personal goals, and change them fundamentally,